Welcome to Agency Acquisitions and Exits. I'm your host, Peter Lang. Today, we welcome Dennis Onalaja. He is the managing partner of Equity Front Capital, a boutique private equity firm that's building a platform in the fragmented B2B services space. Now, he didn't come from private equity. He started his first business venture fixing phones and computers, and then acquired his first platform, Modern Growth Partners, a Webflow web design agency. He's now on a path for building a holdco and a platform and is M&A focused. He came into my world by hearing about our M&A and exit lab on a Thursday night, booking his flight, showing up Friday morning, and having his world transformed by learning about what programmatic M&A is going to do to his portfolio. It's a wonderful journey that he's just getting started on. So let's dive in. Dennis, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
All right, get us up to speed. We're going to get into your M&A journey here. What got you started in entrepreneurship, business, so we can really relate and understand the journey you've been on?
Yeah, happy to go into it. So my entrepreneurship journey started at age 14. I got a phone finally at that age. And at that time, I was making $20 every 2 weeks to go to football games and, play, go hang out with my friends and different things like that. So money was pretty scarce that time. But I ran into a continuous problem where I kept breaking my iPhone. And so since I was breaking my iPhone, I would have to save up for like months at a time to be able to fix the iPhone. And then one day I broke it. I was actually traveling to Nashville for the very first time by traveling by myself. And my aunt had given me a gift card. I just broke my phone. It was $30 short of what it would cost to actually fix the phone, which was $80 at the time. And I got a $50 gift card. And I was like, now I have to stay in for another month after this trip. And then I thought to myself, there's got to be an easier way to be able to fix this phone that's cheaper. There's no way that someone's fixing a phone for $80 and only charging me $80. That wouldn't make sense. And so then I went on eBay and Amazon and I researched what is this screen called? Am I able to repair it? Growing up, I was always fixing things around the house, like computers and softwares and different things like that, troubleshooting. So I was like, oh, I could easily do this. And then I bought the part from eBay and then I did not fix it. But I told everyone that I knew how to fix phones because I believed that I could do it. And so then I finally had a customer come in and they had me fix their phone and I was able to fix it. And since then, the rest has been history. With that business, I was able to scale to 14 cities, but I also didn't have a car. Living in Dallas, Texas, that's pretty interesting. So I was actually paying people to borrow their car and then paying people to go pick up phones for me and take me places. So I had employees without even knowing it. And I didn't even really consider myself an entrepreneur until later on. So that's really what started everything. During that time, I got brought into a venture and started an ed tech company with some friends in high school. It was peer-to-peer tutoring. Kids that were smarter than me and everyone else would tutor everyone like me and everyone else in their classes. And so after that, we scaled that and then we sold it right before college. So we sold the company and it wasn't an insane amount of money, but it was my first time feeling the effects of actually selling a business. So I was like, oh, this is great. Like, weight's been lifted off my shoulders. Then I went to University of Texas Austin, studied marketing and pre-law. And I had kind of had the entrepreneur itch. I was like, let me start another business. I think I tried like 6 or 7 more. I had one that I got really involved with, which was wasn't fixing, it was hardware tech. And I had partners and we were building a rental station for portable charging at festivals and events. And we did a whole business plan and I had engineers and mechanical engineers help me create schematics and PCBs and finding the parts and designs. And then the part we wait all the way to we're about to order the part through a manufacturer and the stock, one of the pieces of the parts went out of stock. That business was over because then we would have to go back to the drawing board. And I was self-funding it at the time, was still fixing phones. And I was like, yeah, let's just dump this idea. So then we went on and then I started an agency with a friend. We had an office in Dallas and I was still in school in Austin. So I was driving back 3 times a week, fixing phones and then also going to the office and then coming back in time for classes at 8 a.m. And then it was doing that. We scaled that agency and it was delivering leads to contractors. So it was like paid ads and YouTube ads and Facebook ads and different things like that. And real agency experience. During that, we actually started a solar company too. And so we had that, but we were working it remote from Houston at the same time. At around the same time as that, there was a company called Fetty. It's still around. It's backed by Y Combinator, Mark Cuban, and that's the Uber Grew Transportation. And so one of my colleagues from the previous company that we sold together went out and actually bought a media agency and acquired a dev team with it. And his friend came up with the idea for Fetty, and they came together as partners to create the app. And so then they like, we need a way to bring it to market. During that time, marketing was my thing. I had a brand across different schools. I knew certain people. And so they needed a way to be able to bring it to market. And so I helped them with their initial growth strategy, scaling from their first like 6,000, 10,000 users from zero. And so that company now has millions of users and is scaling rapidly across the nation. And so doing all of that and kind of seeing their process, I randomly came across a company, their friend that I got introduced to, and it was a Webflow agency. And we were talking one night and he was like, hey man, I love the agency stuff, but I don't really like doing the agency stuff. I'd rather just be able to focus on dev. And he's like, would you buy my agency? I was still making websites for companies at the time and different things like that through my own personal agency. And I was like, you know what? No one's ever offered me that before, but I feel like this might be a new step in the direction of where I'm supposed to be. And I have very big mentality of less thinking, just doing. And so I was like, you know what? I've never bought a company. He just threw out a number. And I said, might as well and do it. So then I did a little bit of research online. He did a little bit of research, and then we inked the deal. No legal, no real Q&V, but I did try to make sure that I knew what I was buying, and I believed in the Webflow mission itself. And so one day, a month later, I had acquired the business and sent the initial wire over. So and then the rest is history. Brought on a partner and began to buy companies in web design and healthcare services.
All right. So there's a lot in there.
Yeah.
It sounds like you were, I don't want to call you an accidental entrepreneur because it sounds like you are inherently an entrepreneur.
I hope so.
And then you took all this initiative and basically hard work, going out and hustled, generating sales, being useful, making money to go to university. What was that commitment like? Why did you decide to get into marketing at UT?
Yeah, so I accidentally got into UT. It was actually kind of funny. I was applying engineering everywhere. I was always STEM. And the last day of admissions for UT Austin came around, and my mom's like, "You better apply." And I was like, "I'm not gonna get in. My grades suck. I get SAT, ACT scores, but it's like my grades suck. I'm not gonna get in." She's like, "You better apply." And I was like, "Okay, if I'm gonna go to UT Austin, what am I really good at and passionate about right now? Let me be honest with myself: engineering or business." And I was like, business. I don't know anything about the business school. I don't know it's competitive. And then I got into business. Now, when it came to determining what major I was going to focus on, I said, what am I best at? And at that time was marketing. I was able to grow a business through marketing and sales, and everything kind of followed behind it. And so I was like, I'm going to go into marketing. And then I went into marketing. When it came into that time commitment, it wasn't that bad. I never found school to be hard or difficult. I just found my priorities to shift in terms of where I really wanted to invest most of my focus into. And so I felt like I was able to understand information really relatively quickly and fast, which was fine. But I think it was great for my own personal development in terms of meeting people that were driven at what they did, regardless if it was school or not. And then some of there was one class in particular that I think had the biggest impact on me from a like mental standpoint that I use to this day. So having both experiences definitely opened my eyes to a lot of different opportunities and possibilities.
What was that class?
It was it was MIS. It was like the intro to MIS. And the professor, he taught strategic positioning and went through a whole bunch of different case studies on how companies like Kodak and different things like that, and Fiji, like would strategically position themselves against each other for like the long-term success. And I think that was the most important message that I've actually learned. I still carry this day.
So you were going to university, you were building a phone repair company.
Yeah.
And through your relationships and friends, you got into a variety of different business dealings, one that got you to exit early on. And then the other one in regards to contribution of the marketing. Did you have any equity in that company that you helped scale from its first users to 6,000?
Yeah, so I was more a rev deal.
So
Yeah.
you're able to then do a lot of, I would call it strategic things, high impact, and you get exposed to a little bit of the M&A side. And then you get approached by someone who's a friend who's like, buy my business, buy my agency.
Yes.
And you're like, sure. I've said yes. I say yes to things. I get things done. I execute, and I can trust that I will show up for it. Obviously, it wasn't such a big investment that you felt like the risk was going to be disproportionately damaging or the consequences too high. You knew you could do it. You believed in it. What years are we in? Keep me in chronological order.
Yeah. So we're in about, I think, 2022.
Okay, so you're now an agency owner, and you had been kind of was a contractor, more agency type. So you were doing work, and you're just a good marketer, helping a bunch of businesses do a variety of different marketing things digitally. And now you're a formal agency owner in 2022. What was different about this venture to everything else you had done previously?
It was first time being in a driver's seat where I was starting a company from scratch. I believe that it's a lot easier, and I was hearing it before. It's a lot easier to take a company from 0 to 10K than it is to take a company from like 10K to 100K a month or 300K a month. Just because you have more resources available to you and you have a bit of a portfolio at that point.
Okay, so you have how much of your time going to this agency in 2022?
In this agency, not too much actually. A lot of my focus is around the programmatic M&A side of things and the private equity firm.
Well, no, in 2022 when you
No,
bought in,
in 2022,
yeah.
all my focus is going
So
towards
you
that.
went all in. You
Yeah,
went all in
well,
2022. Okay, so now it's 2022. You're all in as an agency owner. How did it go from I got this agency, I bought it, to now I'm going to do more than just be an operator in an agency?
yeah, I'd been running the agency for about 2 years, and I had another come to Jesus talk with myself. Over the past couple of years, I'd always wanted to start new businesses, look for new opportunities, and I would kind of exhaust myself within those businesses. And I was trying to transition myself and kind of
Why do
reach
you
that.
think that was the case? Like introspection, like why do you think you get pulled to new projects instead of the project in front of you?
I think that with a network comes opportunities that always sound good in theory, and they might actually be really good in theory, and you don't want to miss out on those opportunities. But two, I think that sometimes, and a lot of people go through this where they go through operator burnout and they're working so much in the business and then they get kind of tired of the repeatable task and they get stretched too thin while building the agency, even while they're hiring. They just kind of get a little bored at times, frankly. And then they start to wonder is if there's something that they feel like they would feel more fulfilled with.
Yeah, it's the types of folks who become entrepreneurs like going 0 to 1 on ideas.
Yeah.
It's very hard to go from 1 to 10 if you're a 0 to 1 idea kind of person.
Yeah.
Shiny object syndrome's everywhere.
Yeah.
My my favorite line is once in a lifetime opportunities come around every week.
Exactly. And even with that, I think that I still didn't feel like that was necessarily my calling. I feel like there was opportunity for me to be able to do more and make a bigger impact, not only for the company or for our clients, for the people around me. And so that's kind of what I felt inside. And so that's when I started to look at different types of business models. What would I feel would actually satisfy me and allow me to really give back and educate?
Now, were you solo? Because you have a partner. Were you
Yeah.
solo in 2022?
No.
So talk about how you got a partner. That's a very important dynamic moving forward.
Yeah. So utilizing like social media and different things like that, I had created I guess, Snapchat group where it was people that they joined if they wanted to, that were on my social media, my Snapchat friends list that accumulated over the last couple of years. I knew there were a lot of people that come to me with business ideas and they're very entrepreneurial focused. And I wanted to be able to give back as much as possible and actually educate them and just kind of flip ideas that they could use for themselves. And one day I was talking about how I was going through acquisition and I started learning a little bit more about fund structures. I take an original course through Richard Pennington's course about fund structures, and then I had signed up for a private equity certificate through Wharton. And so I was just posting about that and the different ideas that I had. And my partner Walker, he saw that, and before then, he was already looking into potentially doing operations, and he wanted someone that was more had more of an operator mindset to be able to go in that business venture with. And I had already started the process, so he's like, "Hey, like, do you want to come together and join and do this together?"
A lot of your entrepreneurial journeys had partners, had people around. Are you just a super collector, Dennis? Like you just get people who want to do business deals with you? What's the thing that causes people to trust you, but also want to do these projects?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's like 50-50. Like, I did a lot of things myself and then a lot with partners. I think that, some people also need other people that are willing to take the leap with them to be able to take that leap. And then also people look for complementing partners that could help build their own strengths, outside of like just weaknesses, and where they feel they could, provide the same amount of value as them. Through the partners I had through the years, I realized that it was more or less about a capability perspective, but more as like culture fit. How do we fit? How do our personalities fit? And how do you perceive things? And then, the depth in which you think. So that's more or less where I started to hone in on if I was going to bring a partner in. Before then, I was like, I'm not bringing a partner into anything. And then I did my own little mental assessment. I decided like, hey, this is the right fit.
Where'd you meet Walker?
Walker at college, actually, but not at Texas, but at SMU. He was in my friend's fraternity, and we just started chit chatting one day, and we had been friends already at this point for like 2-3 years.
That's good. That's a fun journey. So where does okay, we want to do M&A because you reference Bridger. Bridger teaches about creating a fund,
yeah,
and that's one category of capital management. But then there's where is all this coming from? Because you described the deals that you got exposed to as more opportunistic
yeah.
versus programmatic. So unpack how you started thinking about A as like your future profession, your vocation.
Yeah. So to do that, I would have to take a couple steps, maybe one step back before getting into the Bridger Pennington course. When we first got our office, I think it was around like 2020. It was in Dallas. It was in a co-working space. There were 5 other guys in there, all around the same age, building companies and all actually wildly successful. And I walked into his office one day and I was just like, hey, this is where I'm at. This is kind of what I'm thinking I want to do. What's a business model that I could look at that allows me to work with multiple different businesses and put operators in place and be able to drive the growth of those businesses? And he simply just goes, private equity. He's like, that's what I was doing. And I quit that job to build what I'm building now. Same as Dylan. And he's like, you really should look into it. I honestly think you could be pretty good at it. And then I was like, okay, sweet. And then that's exactly what I did. And then I did Richard Pennington's course, and I was like, oh, this is exactly kind of what I want to do. And then I was like, okay, he teaches the fund structure. He kind of goes over the small business a little bit. I need something a little bit more in depth. And then I found Ben Kelly's course. I believe it's Ben Kelly. And that's all about this small business acquisitions. So then that kind of tied the knot in terms of understanding, okay, what does a fund structure potentially look like? And then what an actual business acquisition system actually look like? But nothing really tied the dots in terms of the M&A aspect. And that's more or less where you came in terms of actually rolling companies together outside of the individual research I would do on my own.
Yeah, you learned very quickly what was possible. You got some confidence from your own exposure. You even bought into a business. Like you Dennis, you take action in a way, and I would love to tell the story of how we met in person because that was such a great representation of how you take action. But so many people are aspirational in their acquisition journey. They think it's too hard, or they think they can't do pieces of the process. And when it boils down to it, it's the person who goes after it that has the highest probability of success doing it. That sounds like it personifies you quite well.
Thank you. Could be good and bad at sometimes, right? So, but
Yeah, but disproportionate opportunities come to those who are decisive, and it's amazing to watch how quickly analyze a situation, measure your risk tolerance to it, and then boom, jump in. And not a lot of people have the same level of enthusiasm for uncertainty. So let's talk about before you got introduced to me,
Yeah.
where's the state of your vision, what you're trying to build?
Yeah. So before I got introduced to you, me and my partner Walker, we had acquired mental health clinics a couple years prior. We'd been building them, but it was more of a slow roll in terms of just the integration aspect and bringing it all together.
That's, by the way, forever, that's code for it's hard to buy
It's all-
companies. Yeah, so that's when we say slow roll, and it's because when you buy a company, something's not always what you expect it to be, and you learn a lot by doing that. Do did that trial by fire initiate you to the point where were confident you could continue to do it, or did it completely diminish your enthusiasm for M&A?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest, like there was definitely like a right side where there's a little bit of doubt, and then there was a left side where it was positive. I think that's backwards too, but yeah, there was definitely that doubt and moment, the period where it was like, okay, what's next? We have to wait on certain things because we're in healthcare. So we can't really move at the pace that we need to. It's not a tech company. And it just kind of left me in a kind of standby position. And I was like, I need to continue. I need to stay working because when you stop doing something, you stop momentum, everything dies. Just like when a deal dies, right? So I was like, we need to keep building. I have full trust and capability that we're going to be completely fine on the healthcare side of things, and that we need to continue moving forward in terms of actually building the private equity firm. And so
Well,
then I,
let's set the table. So you and Walker go out, you find some acquisitions,
yeah.
and the description was Dennis is the marketer. Dennis is the one who is interested in the M&A side, and you have Walker, who's the operator, who's going to be the person stepping in.
So it was more or less me, the operator and the marketer, to be able to set things up. Now we had teams, and we would hire people for those specific roles, but it was still a little bit intensive in terms of certain roles that we weren't necessarily ready to hire at the exact time that we needed to fulfill on. Walker is more of the financial guy, and then communication with a lot of the teams and partners, and then he would help a little bit with operations as needed. And so that's kind of where we were within that fill. Now we have a CEO in place that kind of handles everything right now, and is pushing the company, continuously pushing the company forward, which is great. But yeah, that's where we were.
Okay, so I hear you saying in 2022, you did an opportunistic acquisition of a Webflow agency.
Yeah.
You started going, okay, Dennis, this isn't what I signed up for. I don't want to just be an operator in this single agency business model. I want more. Are you doing what you want to be doing? You sat down with someone across in the co-working space who said, hey, private equity. You then go out and seek information to provide you some direction. And then you and Walker go and find some healthcare facilities. Do you want to name what the actual healthcare category is, just to give context?
Yeah, outpatient mental health facilities.
Yeah. And so you found one to start before.
Yeah, it was one with like two locations.
Perfect. So you found one with two locations, and you two go through the process of acquiring that business. It's two locations housed in one business, or each their own entity.
Two locations, house in one business
Perfect. So you close on your first acquisition,
together.
like tug together. It's like a formal project.
Yeah.
You go out. Did you raise capital too?
No, we didn't raise capital. So both of them were self funded. Then, yeah. But and we did the full legal and QFE process with third party support.
How'd you feel about bringing the professionals in compared to the first few that you were exposed to?
I have my reservations still. I think who you bring in is very important. And we weren't as cash fluid at the time. So, but, every other acquisition after, lesson learned in some accords. But it was a lot better in terms of the time. Actually, whenever I did it before, I didn't use any of that. So it was cool to see someone else do it and learn. But yeah,
Yeah, a lot of times entrepreneurs who don't have any formal M&A training, whether that be academic or through courses and communities, however they go about learning about business buying, learn M&A through osmosis with the lawyers, the CPAs, or the accounting firms that do the QOV, just by the exposure of the rep, start learning it. And so you'd already kind of jumped into it. Now you got some people showing up and helping with the deal. Now you had some turbulence in that. You were figuring it out. You guys have worked through that, but it didn't deflate your enthusiasm for Dennis. What in your core makes you still believe the private equity, the M&A side is your calling, where you want to spend your time and energy?
I think because I'm consistently learning every single day. If I feel like I'm not learning, then I feel like I'm not growing. And that's what private equity continuously provides to me. I'm learning different business cases. I'm learning different niches. I'm learning different, operational ways of navigating situations. I mean, I think that's like the most fulfilling part to me. And then educating people on it, small business owners, giving advice on little things that they could do to help their business, even if we are going to buy it. It's only going to help everybody involved. So it's
Yeah.
very fulfilling in that accord.
Yeah. Entrepreneurship, 0 to 1 startups combined with agencies serving different clients in different niches or different sectors, problem solving, and then private equity or holdco, where you get to have multiple assets, each with their own different problems, really keeps someone who requires that degree of stimulus, Dennis, like you, really engaged. Really engaged. And I think it's also the highest ascension of your professional career. It personifies everything that you've gotten through since you were 14. Okay, you have this in place. Let's explain how you showed up in my world. Because spoke very highly of your character and the type of person you are when you take action.
Thank you. So it's very interesting. I'll just kind of paint the whole picture. So it's like maybe 9 p.m. at night on a Friday. And I'm
Thursday.
on until on
Thursday.
Thursday. It was on a Thursday. Yeah, it was on a Thursday. I'm on my computer working late and I'm scrolling on LinkedIn and I see Yannick from Veza Digital talk about how he's not able to go to this M&A boot camp and he has an extra ticket that he's wanting to give away. And I was like, M&A boot camp for agencies. I was like, I wonder why he's going to that. And then I click and I find your profile and I look, maybe spend maybe 45 seconds just going through your LinkedIn. And then I see a podcast with you and Peter Kang. And then I click on your website and I see agency programmatic M&A. I was like, well, at this point we had pivoted. We didn't pivot, but we had our healthcare clinics and we had that roll up going on. And we opened up our B2B aspect of it too as well, which AMO was included in. And we had came up with a thesis and a strategy to modernize it within the higher ed, government, and healthcare industry. And it was going to require us acquiring other agencies in those niches. And we had already been talking to an agency before that to bring on board as a partner. So I was like, okay, I'm navigating the scenario right now. I see a lot of different information. This guy seems like he knows what he's talking about. Just by a brief 45-second overview look. I mean, you had credible people and everything like that. So I was like, okay, like if I look at flights, it's like $1,000 to go. And I like DM Yannick. I was like, hey, I'm in. And I was like, okay, I don't even know this guy really, but
Context. This is Thursday. The event
yeah,
is Friday.
context. Yeah, we're still on it. And I messaged Yannick. I was like, hey, you saw that ticket? I think I'm down to go. And he's like, yes. And I sat there and thought for a second, or maybe a couple hours. I was like, am I really about to spend $1,000 to go and see this guy that I didn't really hear about until that day? And I said, what can I lose? Like, what's my disadvantage here? Spend the money and then be upset, or spend the money and get the best information I've ever received before in my life. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna bet the odds here and just book the flight and go. And so I booked the flight at about 2 a.m. in the morning. The flight was at 6 a.m. Woke up, slept for 2 hours, woke up at 4 a.m., drove to the airport, and was in Arizona by maybe 7, 8 a.m., right in time for, I guess, breakfast. And I see you and I say, hey, I've never heard of you before, but I found out about you last night. I'm here. And you're like, well, like, I don't really know how to necessarily respond to that. Thank you, but I hope I don't know if that's like a this or what. And you're just kind of joking. And yeah, then I spent the next 8 hours with you, left early, but got the course right after. I honestly think that was the most value packed boot camp or session or anything I've ever been to my whole entire life. I felt as if everything just all the dots connected there. And then I had more of a plan and a strategy going forward in terms of what I actually needed to do to be able to make what I had in my head come to life.
When you gave me the context to your situation, I said, "Oh, this is your room," and it's very fortunate that we were able to align because it sounds like it was the perfect time for you to take the type of deep dives that we give, and maximize it because you're the type that takes action. And so yeah, you asked so many questions, Dennis. And for just to give kind of the bookend to that story, Dennis found out about our event on the other side of the country because I've had closer events, and he flies day of, arrives early, and leaves that same night, flies back. Is very engaging in a very, I mean, it's a heavy content, a collaboration, 8 hours. It's intense, intentionally. It's by design to give everyone hopefully what I can give them in a short amount of time that allows them to advance their M&A journey. And then you took action. Then he finds out that we offer a training program off of my book infrastructure, and you also dive into that, and that's 20 plus hours. You're a sponge. And then you also came to the boot camp that we hosted in Boston. For where you are in your M&A journey, how would you describe what you've learned since we've met?
I feel like I learned more of I feel like the M&A journey and, since we connected Peter and with all your advisors, I've been able to fill in the gaps and really have the stepping stone into actually building the platform that we are trying to build. We had the idea, we knew what we wanted to do, but we just weren't 100% sure because of no prior experience on the certain gaps in how to answer the certain questions that we actually had to be able to make sure that we make this a smooth process. And so in my journey, that is taking me from, if I was at say a 5, that's taking me to like a 7 or 8. And then really it's just about bringing the right pieces together and the right deals together to make it a 10. So I think it's been very transformative for me and also for my partner going forward. Yeah.
Equity front capital.
Yeah.
Describe what's your focus? So what's
Yeah.
the buy box? Where are you taking the firm? What are the type of business and founders you want to support?
Yeah. So equity front capital. What we do is we acquire small businesses, usually doing between 500 to $1.5 million in EBITDA. And we focus on small businesses in the B2B markets, as well as healthcare markets too, as well. In terms of our greater vision and strategy, we create platforms in the lower middle market and we unify the brand, and then we sell upstream to middle market private equity firms and strategic partners. And underneath that, currently with our current roll up, we have a holdco of Modern Growth Partners. Modern Growth Partners is what we're building, a unified brand in the higher ed, government, and healthcare space of web design agencies, helping them improve the infrastructure of the institutions that they work with currently. And that is kind of our core focus right now.
Great. And then when you talk about the activities of you have outreach going on. What's your day to day? What's your week look like to support for your investment firm?
Yeah. So currently my M&A is pulling myself out of some of the operations within ammo, and, hiring the right people. And then also, which doesn't take too much time. And then also prospecting with clients and reaching out to, not clients, but sellers and reaching out to them, see if they're interested in a call, and discuss how we could potentially partner and operate together. And then going back and forth with our investment team on, is this deal a deal that we should pursue or not? And then also talking with different stakeholders in terms of like advisors, legal, and a lot of hiring and interviewing calls to make sure that we're able to bring the right team together. Outside of that, a lot of research. I think the majority of my day is researching and thinking of strategy on how we can perform certain tasks, not just once, but at scale and putting things together.
You talked about your investment team. How are you approaching financing or funding transactions? And then to what's the goal, Dennis? Now we know where you are. To what are you building towards?
Yeah. So when it comes to financing, we've been the way we plan to handle this roll up of the agencies is through debt financing, as well as a leverage of a fund and independent investors that are accredited in high net worth. So when it comes to the initial buy of some of the companies, we also utilize SBA to be able to fund some of those transactions.
What has been your biggest takeaway? So if we can go back in time to Dennis before he bought the Webflow agency in
Yeah.
2022, what are some of the things you know now that you wish you might have known then?
Things I would have known. So to answer that question, it would be around founder dependency. Whenever it comes to influx of leads coming in, do they have a repeatable process for leads? Next would be client concentration. If client concentration is above or under 20%. And then stability of a business, depending on the EBITDA or revenue threshold where they fit. One of the other biggest things that I learned about after the initial transaction is creative financing and finding ways to finance deals. To buy a $5 million company, you don't necessarily need $5 million. You could come in with $1 million cash and seller finance the rest and earn out and use other creative financing structures to be able to do those deals. And it's the same thing that the big Fortune 500 companies do. It's the same thing as the even smaller, the mid-sized ones do. Everyone uses the same creative financial structures with different stipulations in them that protect the investment. Because when private equity and business buying, you're not necessarily trying in the how much money can I buy this company for? What's the best deal I can get on it? You're really in a risk mitigation game, and so you're really trying to protect your risk and make the best deal for both the parties that are involved. And so that was one of my wake up calls going through the process, talking with a lot of different founders and entrepreneurs in terms of partnering and buying in a company.
Yeah, with risk goes value and vice versa. And if you can learn to structure deals like the professionals do, which
Yeah.
adjust for risk, there's nothing holding you back. And I also label creativity as just your solution architect. You're going to list what is it going to take for this acquisition to happen? What funding sources do I need to put in place? What terms do I need to build into the deal to protect my downside? And then, of course, if you're starting to invest with other people's capital, how do I confidently generate a return on these people's investments? And it's a wonderful vocation and craft, especially when you have the right mindset. And Dennis, you have the right mindset. You are an entrepreneur, and now you're in a position where you get to help entrepreneurs uh, create value from something that they've started and maybe gotten stuck into. So your vision is building this into a long-term holdco, or is the idea a shorter term, 5-7 years traditional private equity?
Yeah, our goal is traditional 5 to 7 years private equity, and then be able to move into a different industry after that around the same sector. So when we look at B2B, we look at agnostic and we look at different opportunities within the market. I think having the foundation, improving the model first, gives us a playbook to repeatedly use in other industries and be able to bring the expertise and the talent that we need, as long as we see the vision and then we can verify it through those conversations.
Hey, you talked about from what you learned, it connected dots. I'm curious, what were those dots that got connected? My stuff is very specific and granular and step by step. So, what's the biggest delta between where you thought you were going this way and now those dots are connected and you're going another?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when it came to the integration aspect, understanding what team is actually required for the integration process and how exactly that scales. Another is stipulations to look for, added stipulations to look for when actually analyzing a deal and talking to sellers and doing your own internal operational DD. And then third would have been some other creative strategies for buying a business that might necessarily be where we ideally want it to be, but it provides a lot of value in terms of the people that are on their team and be able to acquire those people to be able to help you take the company where you need it to be. Because there's so much talent out there when it comes to people, and sometimes that's better than the actual asset itself. And yeah,
Yeah, we talk a lot about aqua hires, and
yeah,
it's very misunderstood category of M&A. And you're really going after key people, but you can structure in a way that brings in a book of business where you're getting revenue and quality people without the same level of investment as a traditional acquisition. So scaling through acquihires is an amazing strategy. It takes relatively the same amount of effort as a normal transaction. But if you can learn that, yeah, you can contribute to any business that you have or any operating company productively. And then, of course, you're highlighting my favorite thing, Dennis. Dennis was always upset at me because every time he had to leave early, it's because I was about to cover more in-depth integrations. Integrations is a very important aspect of creating value. And many people punt it till after close because they're so focused on the deal itself. And due diligence is preliminary integration planning. Your job in due diligence is to gather as much detailed information as you need to build an integration plan or a value creation plan, whatever it might be, before you close. And that doesn't normally happen. And the level of depth required for you to do a good due diligence goes beyond just a single operator being able to know all things. And that's that team you're referring to. We call it, it's in the industry, a DIMO, Due Diligence Integration Management Office. I rebranded it DOMO just because it's safer for creative industries, Due Diligence Onboarding and Management Office. And now you're getting to build that infrastructure and team. Dennis, fast forward 5 years? Let's go 5 years.
yeah.
What's your world look like in 5 years?
5 years, we're nearing the sell of our platform or preparing for it. And we've already started the building up another platform in another industry that we feel is, in the prime for the future. And we would have successfully acquired probably almost in terms of tuck-ins, bolt-ins, and all of that, maybe 11 different companies, maybe 12. And we brought those all together on
And this is your day to day. You
one
go
day.
from being a engineer fix it, marketer, entrepreneur to M&A practitioner. You don't have to do anything else for the rest of your career in regards to development because you'll have plenty of things to keep you entertained. The last thing I want to ask you is,
Yeah.
given everything that we see with AI
Yeah.
and the fact that you've now dedicated your vocation and career towards AI, how do you feel about AI versus maybe if you were just stayed as an agency owner?
Yeah. I think in the past, it was definitely a little bit frightened, but also a little bit unsure, trying to block out a lot of the AI noise because a lot of it I feel like is fear marketing that you see online, which is the best type of marketing to be able to get people to actually do things. But I see it more as a tool for us to be able to use not only internally for operational efficiency, but also to increase operational capacity. Now I see companies requiring less employees to be able to utilize AI, which is perfectly fine with me because one of the beauties of building in the lower middle market is we're building a company towards this almost technically a specific headcount. And we can acquire these companies with that headcount in mind and be able to keep majority of their team members on as long and then give them the tools, the AI tools to be able to increase their capacity, but as well as um, streamline and make their lives easier operationally, which in return will lead to better client success metrics and more clients in general. Yeah, I mean, traditionally we're building towards a 220-person company, but we think we might only need like 180 to 200 employees to be able to do that with the rise of AI.
Are you, when it comes to your, I would call it your professional evolution,
Yeah.
do you think it's important for you to learn M&A over AI? Do you feel like you have to spend time learning about AI? How do you feel about your own professional development with it?
I think as a professional, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I think you should learn everything. You definitely preach this a lot. You should know everything to be able to know what to look for. You don't have to be a complete expert in it, but you need to know what you're looking for. And I think that it's more beneficial to still learn, stay up to date. But when you become an agency owner looking at programmatic M&A, you become more of an asset allocator. You're allocating capital to acquire people that can do what you need them to do and kind of still remain and provide oversight and strategy and vision to make sure that what you have, the ideas that you have and your leadership have are actually come to fruition with that hire. So I think it's important to still learn AI, but I don't think you have to be a master at it. You just need to understand what you're looking for and use the same strategy and vision mindset when it comes to acquiring that talent, so that they can actually carry out the rest of the tasks needed.
Use M&A to solve every business problem and get people who care about AI and want to implement it inside of your companies. You've done the highest level of ascension of an entrepreneur, which is going from 0 to 1 to private equity as your career. And Dennis, you did it without having gray hair. You did it without joining investment banks. You did it without the traditional path forward. And it's one that is available to so many who are like you. I appreciate you setting out the time. And your last message to someone just like you or yourself, that 14-year-old, what would you say about where you're headed and the things that you've overcome?
I would say less thinking and more doing. You learn by doing, not by thinking. Thinking will end up wasting time, and opportunities come and they go, and so you want to be able to assess the situation quickly and make a decision rather than assess the situation and keep assessing while the opportunity passes you by. So the world's not going to wait for you.
World's not going to wait for you. Go out and get it. Dennis, I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate you as well. Changing my life.
If you like this episode, probably like one of our other episodes. Click here.